Hi, this is a 10-minute lecture that's basically an introduction to library databases. This may be a new concept for many of you, but trust me, you're going to be using databases a lot while you're at IPFW. And the nice thing for those of you who are internet students is we never actually have to leave our desks, leave our computers, in order to visit Helm Key Library. So let me get started by taking you to the table of contents for this lecture. Okay, here's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the concept, why databases are different than Google. We're going to discuss how the search engines work. Then we're going to actually walk you through a search for this specific class, the specific lesson unit that we're on. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the citing issues that are related to this particular paper. Library databases are probably a new concept for many of you. Simply put, a library database is a collection of copyrighted, peer-reviewed articles stored in a password-protected search engine. Notice those keywords that I just used: copyrighted, password-protected, peer-reviewed. The key concept here is contained in the words peer-reviewed. This means that the articles are written by experts in a certain field and then read over and edited by other experts in the field. This concept is vastly different than what Google or other open search engines offer. They search anything that is on the World Wide Web, be it an article by someone who has studied the issue for years and years and is highly qualified by the professional and educational background to talk about the subject, or an article by someone who only heard of the subject yesterday. Much of the material found on the web, even material that looks completely authentic, is in fact entirely bogus. For example, there's a vast array of professionally designed and sophisticated websites that Google returns, which seems to conclusively prove that the Holocaust ever existed and is some kind of elaborate hoax. Okay, trust me, please. This is pure garbage, of course. Is anyone who's ever traveled in Germany, such as myself, okay, I was a soldier there, and Eastern Europe, or studied in the National Archives online, the stunning and sickening photographs taken by Margaret Burke-White of the notorious Buchenwald death camp as General Patton's troops swept the Nazi guards away, or anyone with any common sense knows better. Nonetheless, such sites exist, as do countless other fraudulent and bogus collections of articles on the web. Databases, as compared to Google or Yahoo or whatever, seek to weed this phenomenon out by ensuring that all the material has been looked at carefully before it goes into the collection. This doesn't mean there is not controversy there. Of course there is. But it's still a better bet to ask someone with a medical degree to perform your brain surgery than it is to ask your local lube specialist. The same holds true with your car service. I wouldn't ask my cardiologist to clean and lube the transaxles of my Jeep, okay? So in college and in business, we ask you to use databases to help you form opinions about certain issues. That is what critical thinking, a skill IPFW is very keen on helping you acquire, is all about. Knowing how to find good information and help you inform your opinions. Everyone, of course, has an opinion, but believe it or not all opinions are equal. Only those that are formed through careful research and the accumulation of hard data are really worthwhile. Let's look at a couple examples. Everyone has an opinion about the Bible, what it says, what it means, etc. But if you're curious about trying to decide what really to believe, wouldn't it help to talk to someone who would actually study these issues in depth, who could read the original Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek that the Bible is actually written in? Someone who actually studied the cultures of the people who actually wrote the Bible. Or to get really controversial, how about global warming? Everyone these days seems to have an opinion on this issue. But just how many people with strong feelings about this have a deep background in science, or in meteorology, or in biology, and organic chemistry, or have actually traveled around the world, been on the glaciers, seen the polar ice cap, that kind of thing? Wouldn't you think that would help you form your opinion? I'm just saying. That said, let's talk a little bit about the specialized search engines that operate the databases. Okay, Google and other open search engines cannot search academic databases because these databases are sealed behind password-protected firewalls. The material behind these firewalls is copyrighted, and in your case, Helm Key Library has purchased with your fees access to use these databases. You must access these search engines through the Helm Key Library portal, which will ask you for your student ID and password, the same as with entering Blackboard or your MyIPFW account. Unfortunately, these search engines are all different depending on the database and the copyright holder, and their interfaces, these things that make the screen dumps from, tend to change frequently. They also act completely different than does Google, whereas Google will always give you literally millions of hits with a simple search or question. A database search engine may just choke and give you 10 or 20 hits with the same search. Sometimes that is good, as quality is not to be confused with quantity. Trust me, you don't want a billion hits when you're doing research, right? So the strategy to solve this is twofold. Be patient, keep trying. Make a list of keywords that define your topic and try to combine those keywords into simple variations. Now I'm going to show you a couple of slides that will actually walk you through a specific database, and then I'll conclude with a few comments on citing. Okay, as I said earlier, you have to go through Helm Key Library to access these databases. Don't bookmark them. Don't take any shortcuts. They won't do you any good, okay? So you go to library, Helm Key Library. It's just simple. It's lib.ipfw.edu. And when you get there, you go over to the right. There's an index there, and click on the else. Next, you go down to where it says Literature Resource Center. Open that. And then you're going to get a screen that has some tabs across the top. I would recommend going over to the Basic Search tab first. There's always a variety of ways you can use these search engines. You might start with the Basic Search before you go to the Advanced Search, but I'm going to explain both for you. Okay, so here we are at the Basic Search. And in this case, I would just type in barn burning. Just have it find all the articles that exist in this database on barn burning. You get a lot, okay? You get about 2 pages worth. And not all these articles are going to be pertinent to this particular essay that I'm having you write. But the concept here, the point that I'm trying to make is that I want you to be familiar with what other people have said about this essay or what other people have said about Faulkner. And this is how you always do research. This is how you always form opinion. It's the same thing when you go out and buy a new car, buy a new CD, buy a new book, download something from iTunes. You look to see what other people have said about it, right? It helps you form your opinion. Same concept entirely. So basically, you just click on these links, and they take you directly to articles about barn burning. Okay, now, another thing you can do is you can more specifically focus your search so that you get a better collection of articles that are maybe more specifically oriented to exactly the topic that you're looking for. So this is when you go to the Advanced Search tab, and you can plug in there Faulkner and barn burning, but you have to make sure that on the left it says keywords. If you look over on the left here, that box is saying keywords because Faulkner is a keyword and barn burning is a keyword. So try that, and then you get a collection of articles that are more focused on did I say Faulkner? I meant feminism and barn burning. Okay, and there are some. There's not a lot. You can also try. I'm having a little trouble reading this. Sorry. You can also try Faulkner and economy. That's a pretty good one. All right, that's a word that's sort of like Marxism, but I'm really talking about how Faulkner treats the economy of the South when I'm talking about Marxism. Marxism, remember, is all about power and control. So is economic issues. So I'm saying basically collect keywords and then plug them into your search engine one at a time in combinations that'll limit your search to articles that contain both the word Faulkner and also contain the word economy, all right? And you'll find articles that are more closely related to the issues at hand here. So you keep finding articles, and as I said earlier, you need to learn to be patient. You need to learn to keep at it. You need to learn to look at the boxes that come up on the screen and see what they mean by keywords. Keyword is just a word that's going to show up in the article. We're not talking about words like and the, that kind of thing. We're talking about words that are very, very specific. So Faulkner, of course, is going to find articles about Faulkner. Economy, of course, is going to find articles that have the word economy in them. So you connect them together with these search boxes, so you're finding only the articles that have the word Faulkner and the word economy in them. So that's what helps you here, okay? I know this isn't entirely clear as mud, but you have to just keep playing with it. And the next unit, we'll even spend more time with this. Okay, let's just wrap up a little bit of citing issues here. This is not meant to be a cited essay, okay? I'm not asking for a works cited list, but I am asking you to attribute your quotes. Don't just steal language, okay? You have to tell the reader always where the material came from. So basically, just in the body of your paragraph, mention the author's name and the title of the article, okay? If you're quoting a critic. If you're quoting Faulkner, just use Faulkner's last name. So here's a couple of examples. I'll let you read these yourself, okay? So here's an example citing a critic. Actually, I'll read it for you. In an overview of barn burning, Bertinel states that, quote, Sarti, from whose viewpoint Faulkner largely tells the story, has up until now had only his father as a primary role model. So here you're telling the reader that you're taking this material from an article called An Overview of Barn Burning and from an author called Bertinel. Now, if it's the first time you've used Bertinel's name, you have to use his or her whole name always, okay? You always introduce somebody by their whole name, and then after that, you use it by the last name. Here's an example. If you're quoting Faulkner, just say something like, Faulkner stages an example of this when he describes his sister's appearance as he immediately worked on the rug their father had ruined, period. He writes. That's enough, okay? These are actual ways that students in previous classes did that, and they did it correctly. They got good marks in their essays. Okay, as usual, if you have questions, you know how to get a hold of me.